Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Investor Financing Podcast. Today is going to be a great show. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about real estate, of course. We're going to talk about adversity and just getting started or moving your business to the next level. Please welcome our guest, Nick Prefontaine. He's a 3X best-selling author and was named top motivational speaker in 2022 from Yahoo Finance. He's a speaker, founder, and CEO of Common Goal and buyer's coach at partner at Smart Real Estate Coach. In 2003, Nick was in a snowboarding accident that left him in a coma for 3 weeks. The doctors told his parents that he probably wouldn't walk, talk, or eat on his own again. Less than 3 months later, he was running out of the hospital. Now a certified infinite possibilities trainer, Nick speaks to groups that benefits from his message of overcoming adversity. Welcome to the show, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Bo, I'm happy to be here.
All right. So, when did you have this accident? Was this a couple years back or was it as a child?
No, it was actually when I was in 8th grade. I was 14. Yeah, I was at ski club with my friends.
That must have been extremely scary for your parents. Like, I couldn't only imagine having their son in a coma and thinking that he'll never live a normal life again. When you came out of the coma, what was the experience like?
From what I can remember, and I pieced together the memory of that day, so I can take you back to that day real quick to give a high-level overview. I remember I was at ski club with my friends, got to the mountain, and we had got ready on the bus. So we headed right for the chairlift when everyone else migrated inside to get ready. On the way up, we noticed, Bo, that it was very icy because it had been raining. People were wiping out everywhere. However, needless to say, we were pretty experienced. It wasn't our first time at the slopes. So I got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air and confidently charged towards the biggest jump in the terrain park with all my speed. And then going out to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard, which that's the last thing that I remember. Now, as I said, I pieced together memories. I was told that I landed on my head and I wasn't wearing a helmet. One of the other things I learned was that my goggles were the only protection that my head had. They told me that with each subsequent hit after the initial impact, my goggles mysteriously, or not so mysteriously, moved to cushion each blow as I rolled down the mountain. And then once I got to the hospital, I was in some pretty rough shape and I was in a coma in the room and my parents are there. And the doctors came in to share progress updates on how I was doing. And at the beginning, it wasn't positive in the least. It was worse and worse and worse every time they came in. And luckily for me, I think one of the things that broke in my favor, my parents knew the ability of the mind. So they said, no, not here, not in front of him. Even though I was in coma, they understood that I was still taking information. So they made the doctors step outside. And then once outside the room, the doctors told my parents that I probably wouldn't be able to walk, talk, or eat again. They really did something important, which was they thanked them. They said, okay, thank you. And then this allowed me to treat it like any other situation. This was no different than any other challenge that I had faced up to this point in my life. Once I was aware of my surroundings and the work that was left in front of me, I got up and treated it like any other situation. I was in a coma, they say, for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month because it was a partially induced coma because they didn't want me freaking out because I'm worrying about where was I and what was going on. So pretty important that they did that. I hope that answers your question. Very long-winded, but I hope it answers your question.
So they induced you to wake up? Is that how you woke up, or did you wake up naturally, or what happened?
No, they said without inducing me, the swelling in my brain could have gone up and I could have died. They didn't want me to wake up and freak out, and then the swelling would go up and I would have died. So they induced me and let the swelling calm down. So then I've seen videos of myself coming out of the coma in the ICU, but I don't remember the ICU at all. Like the lights were on, but no one was home. My first memories start when I was at the 3rd floor at the rehab hospital in Boston. And that's where my journey began. The 3rd floor was reserved for the most critical of cases. That's where my memory is kind of fuzzy, but that's where they sort of start right there.
When you awoke from the coma, were you able to like walk and everything, or you were how'd you overcome that challenge of like when you were waking up and realizing what happened, and obviously your family and the doctor telling you what happened? Did it take you a long time to start walking again? How did that happen?
Yeah, I couldn't do anything. I had gone from 160 pounds down to being in a coma for 3 or 4 weeks. I had went from 160 pounds down to 137 pounds. So I had lost a lot of weight during that time because I wasn't moving. So then at first I was in a fully supported wheelchair. And before that, it was just sitting up in bed for minutes at a time. And even after that, I was thoroughly exhausted. I was sweating like I had just run 6 miles. And it took multiple people to sit me up in bed. And that was a big deal. That was a big deal for me. And then from there, I graduated to a fully supported wheelchair, then a regular wheelchair. And then after that, I started standing up for the first time. And then I started taking my first steps. So yeah, I had to. Now that's just like, people say you have to learn how to walk again. It was everything though. I had to learn how to talk again. I had to learn how to shower and take care of myself. I had to everything all over again. It was like I was a 14-year-old newborn infant, I guess you could say. I had to learn everything again.
Oh, I could imagine that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And so it took you maybe a couple of years to really get back to I guess you want to say normal, right? Where were functioning. Efficiently.
Let me just lay this out. So I ran after running out of the hospital because that was my goal from as early on as I could communicate. After running out of the hospital, it wasn't like that my work was done. I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy along being tutored all summer long in order to continue into high school with the rest of my classmates. And looking back on it, Bo, it's a little surreal that only 18 months later, I was knocking on the doors of some distressed sellers that hadn't paid their mortgage in months, sometimes years. And my job was to book meetings for an investor to meet with them about buying their house. Looking back on this, because you probably know the phenomenon, I'm not sure if you do, but when you're younger, time is compressed. So 18 months or 24 months feels like a lifetime when you're younger. But now looking back on it, I didn't realize it until a mentor last year reflected it back to me like, okay, that was only 18 months after running out of the hospital, after you finished rehab, outpatient rehab, that you were doing this, that you were knocking on, going door to door and helping people out of their unfortunate situation. So that was kind of my intro to real estate. It was also part of my recovery. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was part of my recovery because that time is so compressed when you're younger. Then after I got out of high school, I got my real estate license, started selling as a realtor, helping buyers and sellers. And then I let my real estate license go in January 2016 and joined my dad full-time as an investor, helping him market the properties that he was getting on terms non-conventionally. So yeah, just like a high level overview on that. We buy homes non-conventionally. So like we'll buy them on a rent to own subject to someone's existing loan is another way. We'll buy it with owner financing if they don't have any debt on the property. And then those are just a few, Bo, but then however we're buying them, we're always selling on a rent to own. And that's where I come in because my dad got to the point where he was just getting all these properties and he needed help with the marketing them. And then he needed help dealing and filtering through all the buyers. So that's where I really came in and really developed a process that you have to bring buyers through in order for them to be successful when they do come to the end of their rent to own agreement. And now that's what I do both for our business, our family business, and then I help all of our associates all over the country to develop the same tools and systems and processes that we've developed over the years. So it's a lot going on.
Yeah, no, I like your business. When I had your dad on the show and I had your brother-in-law, creative financing. I like what you guys do too, because most of the time your exit strategy is to sell a rent to own or to an end buyer, right? And so
100%. Yep.
it's not like the traditional process. Like, like what I do is I buy houses and I rent them out, but it's a pain in the rear end because you're responsible for all the maintenance. Now, your model, in my mind, is somewhere where I need to go with my, and when I have a lending business, and obviously I invest a little bit, but that makes more sense to me because it's like they're responsible, right? And the onus is on the buyer, or the rent to own buyer, to do all the maintenance, to take care of the property. And usually you're probably getting a better type of renter or rent to buy because
you're getting an owner, you're getting a buyer, not a renter. Yeah, it's different. It's a different mindset.
And then if they don't perform, you resell the property. It's not no skin off your back. So it's a really great model what you guys are doing. And then so smart real estate coach, then your dad kind of built this business from scratch, grew it, you came into the business, you helped with systems and so forth, and your brother-in-law got in the business, and then you guys have a coaching program where you're helping other investors throughout the nation, right? Learn the strategies that have worked so well for your family, essentially.
Yeah, that's right. And the thing that's exciting, Bo, is that excuse me. The thing that's exciting is that I'm aware of. I think we're the only people in the space that are actually jumping in the trenches with our students and like holding their hand and helping them get these deals, like get deals under contract, and then like get a buyer and like actually bring things to completion, to the attorney's table where you're signing up the rent-to-own buyer and everyone gets paid. So something you mentioned, that if they don't cash out the property, it's no sweat off your back. Yeah, we're going to be fine. However, we find that the number of people like outside of the people that we work with, the associates that we work with, the success rate of the rent-to-own buyer is probably like 10 to 20% of the time. And the other times they default and the investor ends up taking the property back. Ours is kind of inverse. So I think 80 to 90% of the time, the buyer will go forward and buy the home. And it's kind of an altruistic business model that we want them to be successful. We want to set the path up for home ownership for them to be successful and close and be able to get their own loan. And I think one of the testimonials from a buyer over the past year or two that we worked with, the rent-to-own buyer, said to us that, well, because I interviewed him for a review for a testimonial, and I said, what has changed now that you've closed on this officially and it's become your own home? And he said, really, not a lot has changed, because you treated me like a buyer the entire time. The only thing that has changed is where I'm making my payments, and now I'm officially on title, because all of our buyers are responsible for maintenance, repair, upkeep over the course of their term. So one of the things you said, they're not calling us if the toilet gets clogged, for example. They're taking care of it. They're also benefiting any upgrades and improvements that they make to the property and subsequent increase in equity. That's their benefit, not ours. So a lot of the times we'll have our rent home buyers close on the home and walk into $60,000 to $80,000 worth of equity.
Yeah, that's good. So during your coaching program, I mean, are most of your students, are they doing it in their local market, or like, let's say I'm in a high cost area, does it matter the market, or can you do this virtually? Does certain markets make more sense, maybe the Midwest versus the more expensive markets, to get this business started as a student or student investor?
So this is how we built it, which is we went 2 hours or maybe a little bit more outside of where we're located. And that's The reason for that is so if something's up with the property, you got to make a trip out there and do a drive-by and knock on the door or something like that. Really, we're trying to set up a deal with our rental, but so we tell all of our associates that they should do that. Like go within 2 miles, like be open to the fact driving within 2 hours of you or thereabouts, because really you drive out there to meet with the seller. And if you end up buying the property, that's one of, if not your only trip out there. You can set a lockbox up, bring buyers to the education process, and then send them in on the lockbox once they've proven to you that they understand your process and your program and understand they're buying a house and not just renting. So really, the only time that you would go out to the property is when you're buying the property. We have all of our buyers, even the properties 2 hours away, or even more than that, a little more than 2 hours away, will drive to us for the buyer's meeting. And if they want the property, if they're serious, that's not a problem. And that's always the way that we've done it. And that's always the way that we tell our associates to do it. Because if you're doing virtual, there's just so many unknowns. We have people that we put in rent-to-own homes that during COVID, we literally couldn't meet with anyone in those months. April, May, June, we physically could not meet with people. So we had to do buyers meetings virtually. We had someone in a house for over 2 years, for 2.5 years. And my assistant and I said, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, like her tone, like everything on the phone, just never, we could never get a feeling. And we believe that if you're going to buy a house, if someone's buying a house and you're developing a relationship, you got to be able to look each other in the eye at least at one time for the buyer's meeting. Everything else can be arranged virtually, and or they can go to an attorney closer to the area. But for the buyer's meeting, we feel that it's still very important to meet face to face with people.
So out of your investor experience and your associates, where do you see the most success as far as deal flow? Is it sub two? Is it you're doing like a sandwich lease option? Where's the like kind of the low hanging fruit for your associates or your students? Where do you see them kind of usually getting the most traction in the beginning?
Yeah, great question. So it changes, it evolves over their growth, but in the beginning, there's one particular type of a lease purchase, we'll call it, that's we call it an AO, which is an assigned out. So we get under contract to buy, and then we locate the buyer, and then some percentage we're splitting the deposit, and then we're assigning it back to our partner or the seller. That's always the easiest one to understand, especially if you're new, and the easiest to be able to partner with and I don't want to use the term sell, but present to a seller. And then it evolves, and then they're like, oh, I can do this. They get some confidence. I get some deals under their belt doing that way. And then it evolves to, oh, I'm going to do a couple of the sandwich leases. Then once those start coming in regularly, then they're like, oh, there's benefit to actually owning these homes. So they move more towards the subject to, closing on a subject to, or closing on it with owner financing. So it evolves. And there's a time and a place for every type of deal in your business. After you're basically a transaction engineer, that's what we like to term it. But in the beginning, it goes from AO to sandwich to sub to and owner financing. Like today, we're extremely picky. We pretty much won't do a deal unless it's subject to or owner financing, because we know all the benefits that's involved with that. Yeah.
No, being a transaction engineer is very important, I think, because what I like about your model is it's not cash intensive, right? Like it's all about deal structuring, right?
Yeah.
You can control these properties for $100 out of your pocket or whatever, right? Versus like, buying a property with hard money, fixing it up, burying it, refinancing it. It's a lot more. This is like you could do an infinite amount of deals because you don't need capital. You need intellectual capital, more or less.
Or
Um,
10 or
yeah,
$10. Doesn't have to be
right,
100.
right, $10, whatever, right? And so are a lot of these deals then off market deals? Like, how what kind of framework are you teaching your associates? How to find these deals. I mean, obviously, you could probably find some on the MLS that haven't sold, but where do you guys usually see the most traction on the deal flow, which is probably the toughest part?
Generally speaking, just almost for example's sake, just to keep it simple for the audience, um, the homes that we're buying are homes that have had trouble selling on the open market, generally speaking. So they're not going to be on the market. That for whatever reason they couldn't get their price in the time frame that they were looking for. So we'll come in, we'll give them a higher price than what the conventional market will bear, but it's going to come in the form of a delayed cash sale. So we'll give them their price, or we'll give them a higher price than the market will bear. However, it's not going to come for 3 to 5 years or sometimes 10.
Nice. So, what is your coaching? This program sounds really cool. Tell me about your coach, the Smart Real Estate Coach program, Wicked Smart Investor. What's the framework for the students or somebody listening to this right now or watching this in the future? How do you get these students? You call them associates. How do you get these associates trained? Is it something that there's a lot of pre-recorded videos and modules, and you just walk through and you're going to learn like step by step by step? How does this work for your associates?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We have something called a Quantum Leap, a QLS system, and we are constantly going through it and updating it and tweaking it. And it's really become a resource for even our more experienced associates. They'll go back and pull things out, pull documents or pull processes out of there and use them for their business. So it's a constantly evolving thing. As we get new tools or new checklists, we're updating the QLS. And how they can learn more about that is they can go to our website, wickedsmartinc.com. And if they scroll down a little bit, I'm just doing this from memory, but if they scroll down, they can get registered for a free master's class. And that's going to teach them all about our trademark 3 payday system. And also tell them, I just high level touched on some of the ways that we buy and sell homes on terms. But that's going to teach them all about how we do that. And if by the end it is something they're looking to do, it's not a good fit for everyone. I'm not pretending that it is. However, if it makes sense for them and they want to learn more, they can take action and get the QLS towards the end of that.
Very cool. That's great. I mean, I think this is obviously the way that people really need to learn how to structure deals if they want to be successful in this business. I mean, from flipping houses, this seems like most of the properties you're acquiring, you're not really doing any work on, right? I mean, maybe occasionally you do when there's some reason to, like there's some good upside, but most of the time it's really you're just facilitating deals, right?
Generally speaking, yes. So most of the deals that we do are pretty homes in nice areas. So they're homes that are move-in ready. If they're not move-in ready, then at the very least, we'll get them cleaned up and like schedule a cleaning or a junk removal, and then get them to a point where they're presentable. But generally speaking, we're not doing $50,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 rehabs on properties before we're putting them on the market. So yeah, we're just turning around and getting on the market. Now, there's a process that goes through, like if we get a property back from a buyer who couldn't purchase the home for whatever reason, and it's not selling after 3, 4, or 5 months or 3 or 4 months, then okay, we have to do a little bit until we're able to attract that buyer. But the investment is minimal compared to the fix and flippers or the rehabbers out there that are buying houses and putting 20 or 30 or $40,000 into them, where we try not to put a bunch of money into them because we'll leave, like in a home that needs work, we'll leave a little bit of room for like a handyman special where a buyer can come in, make the improvements and upgrades, and take part in the increase in equity that occurs because of those by the lower price. So we want them to be on the same team as us to be able to get the home closed out so they can walk in even more equity.
And then you can also use a lot of these strategies if for say you wanted to like keep these properties as like short-term rentals. If it would make a good short-term rental, I could go in, one of the tools in the tool belt is I could just, take it down either sub 2 or, some kind of seller carry finance or creative structure. Some of your students probably keep their properties too. Maybe they're short-term rentals or maybe good cash cows, or the system that you have, like you're getting a couple profit centers, right? Like you're getting, when you bring in the rent to own buyer, they might be bringing in 10 grand, right, as a kind of an option fee, and then you're making the spread of what you have the deal, what you're paying the current owner. So you have a spread there, and then when they actually execute the purchase of the property, so there's like 3 paydays, right, on some of these deals.
Yeah, exactly. And it is the 3 paydays. So we'll make money from the buyer's down payment, the spread between what we have to pay out and what we're collecting. And very often the third payday is often the biggest, actually pretty much 95% of the time is the biggest. And that's when they close and get their own loan. So as I mentioned, we do have an altruistic view. Would we make a little bit more money if the buyer doesn't exercise the option? We have to pivot and get it sold in the open market sometimes, but we want everyone to succeed. So when they do, we're winning for putting the deal together. The seller who we bought the home from is winning, meaning that they don't have the name on title anymore, and the buyers are winning where they're walking into equity. So that's why we really are committed to having the buyer be able to close and get their own loan in the home.
Yeah, right. I mean, obviously the rates were amazing like a year ago. They were, 3% or a year and a half ago. And I was just thinking about me, like the house I own, right, not 3%, 30-year fixed rate, but now I was like, I want to move up. I want to buy another house, right? And then I'm looking like, oh, the rates are higher, but really what I really have been thinking about is like, why don't I just find something that I really want that I could do some creative financing, right? Like you can use these tools you guys teach in so many different ways. Like instead of me having to go and get a conventional loan, I could do creative finance and move into that property and keep this one that I live in now as a rental. And so like, I think that what the framework you can use in so many different ways, right? Like one is finding a seller that's got a pain point and maybe they're stuck on a price, but we come in with our tools, which will be like structuring the deal where they get what they want, but we get what we want. And that's what been thinking about doing. It just kind of like finding the deals to me, it seems overwhelming. But I guess you guys also help build processes around like, okay, here's what your day should look like if you want to find deals, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And do you guys have like in your coaching program, do you have like accountability of any sort, or is there any like micro tribe groups within? Because you guys have been coaching for a long time, so you probably have a lot of students that have gone through the program.
Yeah, we have different levels of our associate program. So yeah, the levels tend to stick together because of how much time they spend together. But there is definitely in each level, starter, immersion, and high six, there is accountability. depending on what level you're at. And there's more accountability at the higher levels. At like high six, there's more accountability at those levels. But that's really the differentiator that we see, is the accountability. And between that and results, because the people that aren't being accountable aren't achieving the results. Everyone wants to do like 5 deals a month and have all these paydays going on, but the people that are accountable and do the work are the people that we find having success in our program. Like make the call, pick up the phone. Yeah,
that makes sense. I love that. Let's talk about common goal. How did that start, and what is common goal all about?
Yeah, I'm so excited that you asked me that. The Common Goal. So Common Goal is my company that I started over a year ago. It's about a year and a half now. And we work with people that are going through a trauma or an adversity, help them get through to the other side and to be able to thrive with the rest of their life. So I only high level overview gave you my story, but given the way that I was able to, once I came out of the coma, run out of the hospital, was I unknowingly utilized a system, the STEP system. And STEP stands, it's an acronym that we created and I unknowingly used. It stands for support. You got to make sure that you have the support of your family and friends. This frees up so much of your mental energy to focus on accomplishing your objective. And then T is trust. Trust that the next step will make itself available to you once you take your first step. And this also starts with trusting yourself. Trust that you have this desire or calling inside of you for a reason. E is energy. Energy. You got to make sure that you have your energy and you're taking care of yourself, because without that, you can't affect and lead other people and lead yourself really to the highest degree possible. And then P is persistence. Once you've taken your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step, no matter how small. That's just like a 10,000 foot overview. But if any of the listeners are interested in downloading, getting the whole STEP system for free, they can go to my website, which is nickprefontaine.com. And if they do /step, they can download the whole STEP system for free. It's really exciting just because, like, for example, last weekend I was in Detroit speaking at an event, the Testimonial International Symposium, and that was for people with like voice disorders. So part of my story is that I had to overcome a voice disorder. So by sharing my story of my accident and the STEP system, and then towards the end of it, the people were like, "Whoa!" So this guy had to overcome a voice challenge just like us. So I think it really helps them, because then at the end of it, the only thing I was doing was giving away my free ebook STEP, which a lot of people downloaded for free and got registered for.
That's awesome. And that's what you're really passionate about. I mean, you're obviously passionate about real estate and stuff, but I think that when you really think about it, like what you overcame was definitely something that I've never had to deal with. But I think everybody individually has their own adversities, right? I mean, yours was obviously pretty significant, but I think everybody really deals with adversity at some sort, and it might all be right in here, mentally, like they weren't in a coma or whatever, right? But people do need this more than anything, I think, really, is because there's a lot of roadblocks with people. I think that's the challenge. And even in real estate investing, you see so many people that really want to do something. They can never take action, which is like crazy for me. But like it's probably the biggest thing. Like, how many people want to be real estate investors? But at the end of the day, people have to realize that if they have to do the work. There's no other way of doing it. You have to do the work. Deals aren't going to mysteriously fall in your lap.
Absolutely. And how I can kind of take that back to like common goal is there are so many people who are, and you can apply this to anything you want, but like you just touched on, there are so many people that when they have a trauma in their life, you can tell I'm passionate about this stuff. When they have a trauma or something, a life event that happens to them, there are so many people that are paralyzed just because they don't know what to do. Fear is a big component. One of the things that we help our clients through is that once they take their first step, their next step is always going to be possible for them. And they just have to trust that. So trust that no matter how small, taking that first step is so important, because once you take that, the next step is always going to be available. And then on and on and on. And really if I can just share this, speaking this past weekend in Detroit, I had probably 10 to 20 people come up to me after I spoke, after my presentation, that were in tears or said it brought them to tears and really helped them with the STEP system and being able to frame their recovery and everything. And to me, that's where it counts. That, like, I know I'm making a difference in people's lives. I've been put on this, like, my accident happened. I don't think anything's like an accident. It happened for a reason. And by having that feedback, when people say that to me after I share my story and the STEP system, is something that really fires me up and really, really gets me excited.
I can feel your passion about that, and I completely agree. That's your purpose and that's your mission. And so, anyways, Nick, this has been a great episode. Can you give people Smart Real Estate the website again, and then where to go to for Common Goal?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things we didn't talk about is the free book, the New Rules of Real Estate Investing, which I'm also a co-author on, which your listeners can get for free if they go to that website. It's wickedsmartbooks.com/right now. And the website again is wickedsmartinc.com. Mm-hmm. And they can scroll down and sign up for the free masterclass to learn all about our trademarked 3 payday system and how we buy and sell on terms. Then if they're interested in anything that I talked about, sharing my story and helping individuals that are going through a life challenge or trauma, they can head to my website and download the free ebook, which is nickprefontaine.com/step.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Nick. Thanks for sharing. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. And, wherever you're at in your life, if real estate's something you want to do, and creative structuring deals, being a deal engineer, deal architect is something that resonates with you, go check out that masterclass, and feel free to connect with Nick over at Common Goal on his personal website, and then you can find out more there. And anyways, Nick, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And hope to have you back on the show at some point.
This was a blast, Bo. I hope we can do it again soon.
Meet Bo Eckstein, the driving force behind Business Ownership Coach. Unlocking the path to business ownership. Visit www.businessownershipcoach.com. Thrive with Business Ownership Coach.
Hey guys, Bo Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.